Good evening. My name is Darian Suggs. I'm the Associate Director of Public Programs. Welcome to the Park Avenue Armory and today's Artist Talk, featuring composer Georg Friedrich Haas, and artist, composer, director of Columbia's Computer Music Center, Seth Cluett. We are so happy to have you with us. Our Artist Talks are part of our Making Space at the Armory Public Program series, curated by Tavia Nyong'o, who is unable to be here this evening. Our participants' bios can be found in your house program. Please take a moment to read them if you haven't already done so. And please take a moment to silence all cell phones. That is greatly appreciated. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Georg Friedrich Haas and Seth Cluett.
Hello, Georg. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Seth.
Such a pleasure to be here talking about this piece. I saw it on Tuesday, and maybe 11 or 12 times in rehearsal and in performance in Amsterdam last summer, and it's amazing to hear how it changes from space to space. And so I just want to talk. Oh, absolutely. Sorry. No, I thought that the microphone, is that better? Great. Happy to. Thank you for the feedback. Both of us are soft-spoken, so we'll just call us out on that as it comes up. So can you just talk a little bit about what it's been like this week and how it's been changing from performance to performance in other spaces, because the piece is very space-dependent.
Well, I think in this case I would like to start in 1985.
Okay.
When I had two pianos tuned in quarter tone, and I was a crazy guy with the detuned pianos, and I hoped to find a partner who will play with me in this, with these two pianos, and no chance. Therefore, I had to compose pieces which I could play alone, one hand on one piano, the other hand on the other piano. And I composed an homage to George Ligeti, where the pedal was fixed all 20 minutes of this piece, and I heard the full piece, the same rhythm. So when I started to compose, my wife came in and said, "Okay, so it's you. I thought we had constructions, but this was my music." And this piece, which has a huge sound wave, this sounds different in each place where I performed it. And the reason, I don't know why exactly, but in general, is it this unit of reverbing strings plus the reverbing wood in the instrument plus the reverb in the space. Here are several things created, and although the pitches are always the same, the effect is completely different. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. So what I want to try to do over the course of the next 40 minutes or so is what I want to try to do is over the course of the next 40 minutes or so is try to work from the outside in and go down to language and then go down to concepts that are underlying the work. But many of your pieces put people into the dark. They surround you with the instruments. They immerse you in the sound. There's something about it that is kind of destabilizing from the typical concert proscenium. Orthogonal seats, yes, they're here tonight, but there's this circular experience that is somehow destabilizing that way of listening. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you think about structuring what it will feel like for people to listen in the space. How do you think about spatial constructions, stage organization, lighting, those sorts of things that influence the reception?
I think this will be an ongoing problem that as a composer, I'm sure many things are happening where I'm not really conscious why. But an important thing is, maybe you can see this as a general approach. I don't take anything as pre-given. We have set 12 pitches per octave, which we are used, which we can write, which we are taught in conservatories and universities. But I am interested in all the pitches also outside of it. And in the same way, I am fascinated by the sound of an orchestra or a string quartet or piano on stage. But sometimes it is necessary to change this. And it is not the wish to create something very special for the audience or create something new or provocative. It's a just needs. Imagine 50 upright pianos. Peter Paul Keinrad called me, do you want to write for 50 upright pianos? And I said yes. But then I thought, okay, how can I organize them? Imagine sitting in front of this piano and trying to watch a conductor. Being in a place, a formation like an orchestra, but it would not make sense. And therefore, this circle around is just, let's say, technical necessity. And this technical necessity went together with acoustic necessity that of course, if you have 50 pianos, it would make no sense to have them tuned in the same way. They must be tuned differently. And this number 50 gave me a beautiful gift. If anybody of you is playing a string instrument like violin or cello or viola, you know when you tune the perfect fifths, you have to detune this fifth a little bit so it fits with the piano. And by chance, this is exactly the 50th part of a semitone. And when imagine you have a piano zero, for example, piano zero has the C, and the G of so this C is a little bit out of tune, but the G of the piano one is perfect. And so I can get a circle of perfect fifths, and also this circle is closed. Therefore, there are many, in composing always, it's not only one reason to do something. It's a network of reasons.
No, that's a great answer. No, perfect. So one thing that is worth noting about the nature of the way that acoustic situation works for the audience is that, like in a cello section in an orchestra, the difference in tuning between adjacent players may be very similar to this difference in tuning between adjacent pianos. And one of the things we love in Brahms and Strauss and Verdi and these things, when we have these unison cello moments that just soar, is that sound mass of that line is not this thin line that is the single stream of black dots. It's a thick line that has interior vibration and tension, right? And the fundamental difference with this piece from an orchestra is that moves around you as the audience, that you can hear that width of a line move its way around the space. And so there's a balance between timbre, orchestration, and physical space that seems at the core of the way this piece is constructed.
Many years ago, I read a frequency analysis of orchestras, and the result was that the Moscow Philharmonic have a range of 4 cent. 1 cent is the 50th part of a semitone, the 100th part of a semitone, sorry, and the Vienna Philharmonic have 16 cent. This means if 3 of my pianos play the same melody, they are like the Moscow Philharmonic. And if 9 of my pianos play the same melody, they are like the Vienna Philharmonic. But I can enlarge this, because poor Vienna Philharmonic don't have more than 10 celli. I can have 50. And this opens the possibility of sound, which is fascinating.
So just to go one level deeper on the tuning, without getting too much into the math or the structure of it, there's there's one contradiction that I see working at tension in this piece, which is that when piano 1 plays a triad, it's an equal tempered triad on piano 1. And so the audience is used to hearing that from all pianos, that they hear pieces written, tuned by tuners unions across the world. And the next piano, when played together, creates a sound mass with the first piano, but interiorly, they are equal divisions of the octave. They are this artificial, human, enforced convenience gesture to ensure that we can tune pianos correctly. And so I wonder, in the way that you've written this, there are these moments of these giant cadence chords where the pianist is playing almost a Beethovenian, monster both hand cadence, internally consistent with equal temperament, but immediately destabilized by the pianos around it. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about maybe the psychology of the ensemble, or the political tension within the ensemble between human constructed tuning systems and tuning systems that are derived from natural harmonic behavior of sound waves.
How many hours do I have? I'm sorry. Well, let me start. I'm sorry, I'm spoiling something. I'm known as a horrible European avant-garde composer. And this horrible European avant-garde composer gets now the toy of 50 detuned pianos. And this is an expectation which people will have who go to this concert, and therefore I start with a C major chord. And everybody is disappointed. And this seems to be a joke. It is a very simple cadence for the musicians: C major, A major, D minor, G major, and again C major. But after 7 minutes, the same cadence comes again, but now in perfect just intonation. The perfect fifth between in the C chord, C is on the zero piano, G is his neighbor, and the E is there. This means now that the A also is there, and when this A goes over fifths, A, D, G, back to C, now the C is there. This means that 12th tone lower. And the next A is there. And so this cadence gradually moves through the space, and to space and pitch. And sorry for this ideology, I hate the word natural. This is not natural. Natural, and this is an artificial system. And in German, we say Naturtonreihe. In English, we only say overtones. But the Naturtonreihe does not exist in nature. I grew up in the nature, in the Austrian Alps, and I heard the overtone chord in the transformator station, because there was a power plant near the house of my parents. And you also hear the refrigerators produce beautiful, beautiful overtone chords. But please, I don't think this represents nature.
No, that's a great. As a person who I direct the Computer Music Center, right, and so I'm thinking all of the time about the artificiality versus naturality of these things, and when I use the word natural, I'm thinking the physical properties of waves as they exist, the harmonic structure of things when they're set into vibration, right, and I think that there's one aspect of this work where, when things are in resonance versus when they are in friction, is a ebb and flow of tension in the work. So there are these moments where there's what we would call consonance, but without judgment. This is like intervals that ring with a resonance in the space. And then these other moments where there's this intense beating, or these things where they're clashing with one another and then they resolve into something. And I wonder how you think about structuring these moments of intense physical resonance and these other moments of tension.
Forgive me, I want to go back what you said about the physical background of the pitches. This, maybe many of you have learned at school, the overtone row, how all these harmonics are. This is not absolutely true, because in reality, the overtones are only, forgive me, in electronic sounds perfect. Yes. And for example, there exists a huge problem how to tune these pianos. Because normally, pianos are, especially upright pianos, are tuned with wrong octaves. Because the spectral, this is natural, of the natural tones, they are not in the place where they should be. And therefore it has to be tuned in a little bit different way. And one of the difficulties is, and was for me when I worked with piano tuners, to make them clear, no, don't change the octave, don't sprite the octave, just tune these instruments in the perfect octave. But this means, and this is why it is so beautiful, when you play, let's say a low, if a piano would be here, I could show it. You play a no pitch, boom, and this pitch has a lot of natural overtones. But because this is a real piano and not an electronic instrument, these overtones are on the wrong place. And the other pianos play it on the right place. And this happens not only once, this happens with each overtone, with each harmonic. And therefore, this piece would be extremely boring if everything would be in perfect tune. But because these are real pianos, you have this life. And I believe one of the biggest mistakes of Western music theory, starting with Pythagoras, is that we believed at the whole numbers. It is because these whole numbers don't exist in reality. It is always a little bit different. And if this, and yeah, I don't have to explain something more to give an answer to what you said. Let me go a little. I spoke about this old piece of mine, which I composed, and it took a long time until I understood what happened. A long time means approximately 40 years. And it is, what happens is that there are so many informations that the single information disappears. And this is an effect which you have, for example, in the classical orchestra with the strings, what you described. Yeah? A former student of mine, a colleague of my 3 wonderful Basel students, which are visiting me today, I'm so happy, Bill, Ryan, and Jairo, that you are here. And you all remember Arash. And Arash had a theory that spoke the idea of plasmatic music. This means, like in the sun, there's a plasma, there's a high pressure and the high temperature. And then it gets something which is not liquid, not gas, it's a new situation. And the same thing happens if you have many, many different pitches, tiny pitches beside. You have a lot of rhythmical structures. So you get a new type of sound which is beyond the traditional music theory, and I also believe beyond the most research of computer music. Yeah? And I think this is something where I really believe this is so much to do, because well, I'm just at the beginning. I have no theory. I only can listen and play. But this density, you will hear it. For example, when there's one pitch and like a cloud around this. Is this a consonant? Is this a cluster? What is it? Just beautiful, yeah. But
I had a sort of boring question I was going to ask about the relationship between your work and electronic music, and I'm going to totally not ask that question now. For just a second, I'm going to put my professor hat on and just explain something. When we teach how computers work and their relationship to the movement of molecules in space or the fluctuation in electrical currents in microphones and things, we talk about, people often don't, my students are surprised to find out that the word analog is because it is an analogy for the air pressure fluctuations in space. So when we talk about analog electronics or electrical electronics, we're talking about electricity functioning as an analog for the movement of the wave in the space. And that movement is 100% continuous, absolutely infinite, unresolvable down to however many decimal places you choose to put after the dot. Digital comes along and goes slice, 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 slice. And yes, there are people who will fetishize the difference between digital and analog and those sorts of things. But I think one of the things that you've done with this piece, and it's just it's a realization I'm having like on stage in front of an audience, is that you have done analog computational synthesis where we can now shed the irregularities and the inability of digital systems to represent the complexity of sound, because we have finally had a critical mass of sound-producing devices that are capable of rendering a timbre that would not be possible digitally, right? And so, I know that you did the one-year course at IRCAM, and so you have an understanding of computer music related to your job as an orchestrator, as a composer. So can you just talk for a moment about what made you walk away from thinking of computers as being able to solve the composerly problems that one dreams up, and how you landed to where you are now, which is synthesizing sounds with timbres in space with huge forces?
I would say my relationship to all kind of electronic music is a kind of a disappointing love. It is my first piece I wrote in 1976. Not wrote, made on tapes in 1976. I found this, if I want to get the sounds as complex as I need them, the technique just to record and play back destroys this. And with computers it would be a little bit better, but I don't know that it is really possible to have, let's say in this beginning of this piece, when the low clusters are coming, then you hear 40 times 50. This is 240 different pitches in presto. Can you mix this? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I say that I had an argument with someone after the Tuesday night performance where they were trying to insist that maybe it could be done with loudspeakers. And I said no, and let me tell you why. It's that a piano is a 4.5, 5 foot wide soundboard producing a wave that is 4.5, 5 feet wide that resonates away from the body of a giant piece of wood that sets into motion molecules in the air that are coming at the audience, spreading out in a spherical pattern from the piano with a mass. And when two of those are next to one another, now we're talking 10 feet of a sound wave, and then we're talking 15 feet of a sound wave. And we're borderline at the ocean with a long wave that is taking the entire length of that structure. And I think the physical impossibility of loudspeakers to reproduce that highly resolved wide wave is something that we will not approach for some years in music.
But I also want to say that I love computers. Sometimes I hate them, but this is, everybody who works with computers knows this is mixture. And in this piece, I need a lot of help of computers. It's that without computers you cannot tune the instruments as precisely as necessary. It goes on and also the timing for the pianists is based on iPads, and in the iPads is programmed when the page turn does happen. Because this was for me the only way to organize the timing. And I enjoy this computer technology. I love the computer technology, but frankly, I want to. I'm a very egoistic and egocentric person. I want that the computer does what I want, and I don't want me to do what the computer wants. And I think the temptation is very huge. And maybe the fundamental, please disagree with this, but I think the fundamental approach between my music and if you would do the same thing with computers, realization, there are many parallels, is if you work with a computer program, you always get a package of sound. And a huge, from my experience, a huge part of work is just to eliminate what is too much. Here, I have to put each detail from the very beginning because I notate everything. This is a fundamental different approach, and therefore I think the music is different.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I do wonder, because I've thought a lot about the iPad timing of the page turns. Do you feel like you've hit a limit of the expressive potential of the ensemble because the timing of the pages is still on some regularity that's controlled computationally, or is there a flexibility in there for Boss to, say, okay, this decrescendo of the sustain of the chord dying out in the hall, maybe you want it to get to here before the next thing comes in, but the page turn happens before it completely goes to zero.
Then I made a mistake.
Oh, no. So the timings of the pages are not regular.
No, they're composed. This is my. I have to confess, it was really an ugly work. I had 50 systems for pianos, which means 100 lines. And I had to write, you start at 36 minutes, 47.3 seconds, you start on 0.7 and so on.
Yeah.
But for 66 minutes, it's quite a work.
Yeah.
And it's, I believe that this is a good system. I will continue with this. But it works in this very special situation very well because of the special situation of the pianos. Mm-hmm. Because I could not compose, maybe I could have some ideas to do it, let's say a march with this. Of course, there's a kind of page turn have to be every quarter and there would be huge documents, but I could do it. But in this situation, the distance between the pianos is, we just spoke about it, approximately 70 meters. This is 0.2 seconds. You cannot compose a march within a range of, and therefore you cannot have a precise rhythm in this piece. And this is connected, and for a structure where there is no precise perceivable rhythm, but clouds and developments, this system is perfect.
No, great. So I think one of the things that happens a lot in the reviews for this piece is that people comment on the novelty, the newness, I've never heard anything like this. And I found this quote from Bernard Long about In Vain, where he's giving a radio interview and he says, I've never heard any music like this. This is the first time I've ever heard any music like this. And I found another well-known composer after Hyperion who said, I've never heard any music like this. And I am angry at the lack of imagination of composers to not recognize the places in the world where these sounds exist they may not exist in the concert hall, but some of them exist in the world. And to say I've never heard any sounds like this is a low resolution response.
Well, I think my quality is that I am more lazy than these composers. Because, frankly, in vain, what is this? Just overtone chords, page number 3 to 5 of Introduction into Acoustics. That's it, not more. And what this is the same here. It's maybe a little bit more complicated, but it is all very, very simple. But the important thing, and this is maybe the difference, is that I am listening and trying to find what it is, what I want, and that I don't trust any construction. And this maybe is one of the things. But really, the harmonic elements which I have here are extremely simple. It's overtones. These are these mass structures of the same pitch in the distance of hundreds of tones. These are the Wisniewski chords, which are used since 1995, and that's it. It's a very, very strongly reduced material. But, and this is the important thing, for this piece, 50 pianos, a huge thing to organize it, many people involved, I cannot have the risk that something fails. Therefore, I only used these things where I was sure they will work.
I think one of the things that some people may misunderstand about you is your detest for authoritarian inflexibility and your deep sort of spiritual and emotional belief in what music is capable of. And I want to talk just for a moment, or have you talk just for a moment about what you believe music can do in a world like the one that we're living in now, and what role do composers have in shifting the needle of discontent and unhappiness and anxiety and darkness and joy and enlightenment and gifts of wonder?
Well, maybe I remember the end of last semester where things in the States became really dark and we were very depressed. I remember one of the students of Columbia, Sophia Young, made a concert, conducted her own viola concert and conducted other new pieces of students. And this concert, there was such an intense atmosphere. What happened here was just sharing the power of us having dreams, the power of us to create a world based on love, based on responsibility. And I think what we, especially in dark times, we need music to make us hope, make us strong, because the music is a symbol for these things which happen beyond. There is a quote in this piece, and I wanted to share this with you. Towards the end of the piece, all the 11,000 strings are sounding. This means we have all the pitches which are possible, the distance of 2 cents, all the pitches which are used in the music. I'm here quoting a vision which the composer Ivan Wisniewski had in 1918, when he had the vision, all the sounds which are possible at the same time. Of course, says your electronic, you know this is white noise and not very beautiful, but for Wisniewski, this was a spiritual vision. And I quoted this spiritual vision. And now the fascinating thing. Vyshnegradsky was the son of a banker, the grandson of the Ministry of Finance of Tsar, and he deeply supported the communist revolution. This vision he had on the first anniversary of the October Revolution. And after this, he understood that there's no chance for him, and he emigrated and fled. But this utopic element, which is in music, which is in art, this is something which I want to evoke, which I want to create here.
Sometimes, people can get so, I hesitate to say this, caught up in the darkness of the moment that they forget to seek out things that are beautiful, and they forget to seek out things that challenge the way that they think, to open up different modes of conversation that may be in friction with their own for a moment, but might help them see a broader, more empathetic, more compassionate way of being. I wonder, what does it mean to you to produce a work like this? 50 pianos, incredible resources, in a military drill hall, in the context of our current political state. I hesitate to go here, but I think there's an urgency to it.
Well, I'm a guest in this country. As a guest, I cannot be politically active. But if you're a guest and if you see that somebody handles it, that your host handles the fire in a way that you know they will either burn down or die from carbon monoxide poisoning, you just have to do a warning. And I want to share with you a part of my own biography. I'm the survivor of emotional, physical, and sexual child abuse. My parents were Nazis and they wanted to educate me as a Nazi. And my father said to me in 1975 something, he said to me, Georg, we, the Nazis, we are, imagine, 1975, the Nazis, we are, okay? We are no fascists. We just won the elections. And we changed the society legally. And there is a necessity for me to share this warning for you. Because I want to say to you, I came to the United States 2013. It was for me the best time of my life. If I would not come to this amazing university, where, for example, Seth is my colleague, would I not find my amazing wife and could live with my life as I want, I would not be able to write this piece. And please keep this United States alive.
Thank you. I'm just going to sit with that for a moment and use this as an opportunity to say we are going to open it up for questions. So if you want to think